Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Global News Review. My name is Ola. I am a CFA charter holder with over 17 years' experience in finance and the economy. And on this channel and in these sessions, which happen every Saturday, I talk about the global news and how it affects your pocket. So if you're trying to up your money game, be more aware of what's happening around you and how it impacts you, then you need to stick around, you need to subscribe and share with a friend. So we obviously talk about the global economy, the African economy, and Nigeria. And so we'll just go right into it. Of course, just to let you know that these sessions are powered by the Money with Club. And if you haven't heard about us before, please check us out. I put the link up there for you too. And also we have a free newsletter. Also, if you are a reader, you might want to subscribe to that. We'll talk about that later. So global news. Now, this has been so much in the news, right? President Trump announces a new set of tariffs. Now, what really is going on here? And I mean, we've harped on it a couple of times. President Trump is of the opinion that in the process of making America great is to realign the previous trade agreements or previously existing trade agreements, such that if, for example, you export a particular product into America and the tariffs they charge you when you bring your product in is 10%, and but when Americans export to your country, your tariff on American products is 30%. He's here to fix it. That's his first job because he wants to make America great again. Right now, does he have a basis? Well, from a solo American orientation, just thinking in silos, then yes, there is a logic to it. There's somewhat of a logic to it. But on a general scale, right, there are trade agreements. These trade agreements were not done sleeping. They were intentional and they speak to other things beyond just trade and numbers, right? So what is the impact? The first thing for you as an individual is that you will now realize the things that were actually imported or exported out of which country or the other. What do I mean by that? If you are living in America, you realize that something that you always thought was an American thing that you've always seen, you've always had, right? The price has significantly gone up, and yeah, it's kudos to this tariff. That's the first thing. And I think the first thing to notice is that this increase in tariffs is going to primarily affect consumers in America and then manufacturers or producers out of America. What do I mean? Trump's tariff affects when you are taking in and out of America. So it's around preserving America's borders, right? So that if you are in Nigeria or if you are in Ghana or if you are in Europe and all you do is buy European products, you are within your space, then you won't be impacted except if your country chooses to retaliate. That's it. But for now, the people that will be highly impacted are the consumers in America because goods will go up, the prices of goods will go up, prices of things will go up generally, right? And then the manufacturers. Now, what do I mean by that? If you part of what you do is export hair to America, and before now, the additional tariffs you would pay would have been 10%, but now it has increased to 34. So let's use simple math. The price of your good was $100. You would have added 10 on top, 110. By the time it goes up to 30, you now be, the price of your good now be 130. If there's an American who's producing hair in America and has been selling at 120, more expensive than you in the past, now that person becomes cheaper and throws you out of the market, except if you have some particularly loyal customers who like, no, this is the hair that I want. That is literally what's going to happen. But for the rest of the world, right, the question really is, how would your country retaliate? What do I mean by that? If your country says that, oh, when I'm exporting to America and America is saying they're going to charge me 30%, right? If, for example, I was at 20 before when I'm importing from America, right? Then I might decide to make it 30. But if really there was already an imbalance, then I might just keep quiet. So there's a lot of noise, and it's very, very important to understand that there's a lot of noise. Media just makes something really, really massive in your mind. Like someone in the club reached out saying, "Oh, that Trump is making everywhere so uncertain," and I looked at it. I'm like, "But excuse me, has there ever been a time of economic certainty? Like you are sure that everything is fine, everything is no. It's media that is messing with your mind because all that has happened is primarily going to affect consumers in America. So they should decide if that's what they want. If they want to go to the Senate, if they want to make noise to make sure that these things are changed and it affects businesses. Now, the reason why countries might not be able to retaliate effectively, most countries, is because they probably have tariffs that were higher for American imported goods already. Do you understand? So, beyond all the noise, it's important to understand what's happening. Another thing also is one thing that we know is also changing is the whole global trade, globalization, everybody coming together. You know, there was this part where every country was on their own and they're like, okay, let's come together, let's collaborate, let's do things together, blah, blah, blah. A lot of that is going into me and my country. Let me fight for my own territory. Let me fight for my economic security, which we don't know how it's going to play out. And that's an uncertainty. But if it's about the tariffs in themselves, it's important to actually sit down and say, this country that they increased the tariffs on, what was the previous tariff? And is it that the country is going to take up the tariff in response? Unlikely. But what you might find is that that tariff, that low tariff, might have been tied to some other concessions. That's where the real issue is. Those concessions, if they decide to say, you know what, because you're not doing this anymore, I'm not going to be doing this for you, then we'll now begin to see those things unravel. And those are the things that we need to watch out for. Yeah. Now, of course, on the back of that, Elon Musk has stepped down. Now, if you're a Tesla shareholder, you would have known that, man, we can see the impact of politics on economy, on business. We can see how leadership impacts businesses, right? Because in all fairness, the last 4 to 5 months movement in Tesla stock price has been political. It has had nothing to do with the business. Such that even when it's correcting right now, I, as an investor, over the years being an investor, I actually think it's actually supposed to correct because those things, those prices that went up, there was no fundamentals to support it. So it's just coming back to where something can hold it. And of course, we know that there's also there's a lot of competition for EVs. And then Trump, not Trump now, Elon's political inclinations have negatively impacted him and the brand to a point where people are considering other options. So it does make sense for him to step down and focus. Focus. Big ups to everyone who is on the Tesla game, right? Who is a Tesla shareholder. Hopefully things will stabilize. Ideally, I didn't check the stock price, but the announcement of him stepping down should actually take the stock price up a little before it comes back down. Because fundamentals, right? Now, before we go on, I just want to announce that I am hosting a free, no, not a free, a paid personal finance workshop. Let me put it up here. It's basically for you if you need to put your finances in order. If you've been working for years and your main game for your financial security is that I will make more money. The question I have for you is that do you want to work forever? Right? Such that you need to have a financial plan. Now, if you have ever been in a strategy, 5 year strategy planning session in your company, or even if you haven't, if your boss had come and said, oh, we're cascading down, we had this strategy session, this is what we're going to be doing, this is this trajectory, blah, 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 7 to 10 year vision, blah, blah, blah. And you stay long enough in that company to realize that the headwinds will come, but somehow or the other, you keep that in front of you, right? And it becomes an anchor, and you keep arranging and rearranging and correcting and adjusting till 3 to 5 years down the line, you find that you've hit that target. The question is, if you do that for your job, why don't you do that for your personal finances? In this session, we will show you how. It's actually a workshop. It's not an education. I'm not teaching you. You're going to have a workbook. You're going to have worksheets. You're going to be making decisions on the go, right? So if you are interested, scan the barcode There is a discount on offer that ends today, 25% off. Share with a friend. Share this video with a friend for them to see this, because it's only people in on that follow us on YouTube and that have access to our newsletter or have connections with our community that are getting this 25% of discount. So if you want to be a good friend, share with your friends. But I promise you, I mean, promotions will start coming up about it. So follow us on social media and you would see it. But I promise you that you actually need this session. If you've ever said, I need to put my finances in order. I need to actually put I'm earning well, but I need to put my finances in order. This session is for you. Now, moving on to, let's go Nigerian news. Okay, no, let's do Africa. Now, the question, we talked about Trump and the what's it called? We talked about Trump and the tariffs. Now, the question is, how would it impact Africa? Now, it's quite interesting because one thing you always have to understand that um when you say when you're pointing at one person, when you're pointing at one person, then you have four fingers pointing at you, right? Um, think about it like that, because at every point in time, when you think you have one thing, there's always an opportunity, there's always something that could come out of it, right? Now, it's the same thing with Africa. Africa might actually pay benefit from this. Why do I say so? Africa has a lot of people and it has cheap labor, right? What does that mean? It means that you can actually access cheap labor in Africa. So if China has massive tariffs and Nigeria has less tariffs, or some African country has less tariffs, there is a case for China to open a manufacturing plant there. Simple. That kind of thinking. So what do we need to do as Africans? We need to lean more into the Africa Free Trade Agreement, right? And then we also need to work on our production capacity. It sounds like long term, but the fact is that it's better to start today than never start, just because we can't meet up with it right now. Because if I talked about it last week, Hyundai is establishing a factory in America. Why? Because if this guy is saying make America great, then let me do make in America cars for them. Simple. Everybody's like, what's the business case here? What do I need to do? Let me make it happen. What does that mean? That even the companies that they are talking about still have the competition. So let's think like that. And then finally, Nigeria. So Nigeria announced net FX reserves, yeah, of about 23 billion. So before now, there has been like a lot of silence about our net FX reserves. But let me explain what it is. You know the way you see that the currency is sliding. There's nothing to defend the currency, right? Um, what actually happens is that your reserves is your backbone. Now, your net FX reserves, so there's a general reserves number, right? So you might see 40 billion, you might see 30 billion, 50 billion, right? But in that 40 billion, there are contracts that we've signed that we're going to pay people dollars in a couple of months or whatever. Now, because that dollar has been assigned to a contract, you can't exactly say that you have it to use. So your net FX reserves is the portion of your contract that is available for use right now. That is available for use right now. Such that if it's available for use right now, it means that you are liquid. Now, what they are saying is that before it was at 3 billion, now it's at 20 something billion. And the idea is that they are going to be transparent about it. They're going to be announcing every week so people know, right? People actually know. What does this tell us? It means that Nigeria, from what they say, is not as bad a situation as we thought it was before, right? And that the government or the central bank is committed to better transparency. That 23 billion number, while compared to other oil producing nations, might not sound like anything fantastic. But for Nigeria, where we were struggling with 3 billion at some point, where we were really in a bad situation, it's actually progress. So big ups to Nigeria on that. And then finally, Nigeria has announced a new NNPC boss. We talked about Naira for crude thing, blah blah blah. There's a lot coming out of NNPC, NNPC Limited, NNPC being public, going public, all that, all that, all that. There's a new boss, there's a new sheriff in town. Changes will come. We look forward to those. We hope that the contracts that will come out of NNPC going forward will be better suited for Nigeria. And let's hope for the best fundamentally. But most importantly, as an individual, don't forget that you can't outsource your health and your finances. You have to engage. Nobody can exercise for you and you will lose weight, or eat vegetables for you and you'll be healthy, right? The same way no one can help you put your finances in order without your inputs. And so, on that note, I would remind you once again to subscribe to our YouTube channel for non learnings, and also check us out. Check out the workshop. Share with a friend. The link will also be in the description. Actually, link will be in the description for you to sign up. Thank you and have a beautiful week.